Welcome to College Football Roundtable, your source for college football coverage, including major storylines,
playoffs,
can't miss game previews, and picks each week. Join your hosts, Dan, Rob, and Jordan at the Roundtable for a show unlike anything else. As for Football presents the College Football Roundtable.
It's week 11. Notre Dame, Clemson against Clemson. Ranked teams struggled in the first half and some never recovered. Georgia, again, takes some time to warm up, but gets things done. We had some great games in the Big 12 this weekend. And Air Force leaves the ranks of the unbeaten and falls out of the top 25. And this week is going to be a Pac-12 showcase as far as big games are concerned. And there's probably going to be a lot of fratricide again this week. What's up, Trash Talkers? Welcome back to the College Football Roundtable. Or if you prefer, you can just call it Ring Knocker Radio. But inside the AFF circles, we call it 2 O's and an NCO. I'm your host, Rob, in Fayetteville, North Carolina. We got Dano Ikebesa calling out of coastal Connecticut and Triggered Joe from the home of the Big House. So this week I watched the Buckeyes struggle in the first half. Then I saw E.J. Warner try to channel his father and use the greatest show on turf, at least against Navy. And then K-State and Texas was in a classic. But again, kickers being kickers. Like, what is going on with special teams this season? And then I watched Army play one of their best defensive performances all weekend. We will dive that way deeper on the Army football show. However, what did you guys end up watching? Dano, and then we'll roll over to Joe.
I watched Central Michigan take on Northern Illinois while I was handing out candy on Tuesday night. What a pleasure that was. Boston College beat up on Syracuse Friday night. Also quite a pleasure, I got to be honest with you. Saturday, I really didn't start paying attention until like the 2 p.m. games. Kept waiting for Navy to make that comeback against Temple, but, dude, that offense is not good. Watched Army Air Force, obviously. Caught the last quarter or so of Bedlam. Kept waiting for Oklahoma to do something. Watched Washington, USC, and LSU Bama long enough to see how that was going to end. And I don't know, man. I feel like I had a lot of college football on, but Army Air Force like swamped everything emotionally for me. So I know that there was a lot of games, but I wasn't focused on very many of them actually on Saturday, except for that big one for me.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that took a lot of the air out of the room because I think especially like if it would have been a close contest or a closer contest, then I think a lot of eyes would have been on it. But like after Army jumped out to a big lead and held on to it going into the third quarter, that kind of pretty much wrapped it up.
I mean, I didn't think we're going to talk about this more, but I didn't think they were just going to steamroll those guys for 4 quarters. I thought for sure the Zoomies would come back in the third quarter and make it a game. But anyway, enough. We'll talk about that on the other show.
Joe, how about you?
Yeah, no, rightfully so. That was a hell of a win by Army. So, unfortunately, I got to watch Notre Dame do their best impression of the team they were playing, Clemson. And I would have enjoyed it if I didn't pick them to not Clemson. But then I watched Ole Miss, who is quietly continuing to have a really good season, jump out to a big lead on Texas A&M, and Texas A&M fought back and made it a good football game. Texas and Kansas State, man, what an exciting second half that was. K-State fought back, made that an instant classic and a phenomenal game. And then I watched Michigan drag the Boilermakers at the Big House with that big mouth chump of a coach of theirs, who just had to be the snitch, so he got served some humble pie at the Big House, and I'll talk more about him later. And then we got to watch our boy Michael Penix Jr. outduel yet another very good Pac-12 quarterback in Caleb N.I.L. Williams, who has lost every big game he's played this year. And all in all, it was a really good college football Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty crazy. And I guess, the over-under question of the century is, when does USC axe Lincoln Riley? I mean, like if he was the OC, cool. Like you're putting up 40 points a game. However, you're the head coach. You have to be able to establish some type of defense. And surprisingly, guess what? USC has a similar problem to what Colorado has. Maybe it's a Pac-12 issue now. They have a halfway decent offense, but they can't play any defense. And I would say the defense, at least for Colorado, has improved over time. Like they're not allowing 40 points a game. They're still being outscored, but it's definitely nowhere near as bad as it was. Like, again, you can take a blind over on USC for the rest of the season, and you're probably going to hit it.
Washington's got that issue in big games too. They're letting 35 plus in these games they're winning. They might run into problems with that in the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And the other piece of it is if you run into a team that has a halfway decent defense like Michigan or Ohio State, then you got your work cut out for you, because those guys are pretty stingy. And so if you go against a stingy defense that's going to shut your corners down, then it's going to become a problem. Thank goodness for Washington and USC that they don't have to play a team like LSU, at least not, unless there's a playoff game, or not a playoff game, but they go into a bowl game, because the defensive backfield that LSU has is not going to let those guys run rampant. And one of the other things that I noticed is, Caleb Williams is like the most talented dude in a pickup game in your neighborhood, because the guy's just running all over, like he's running all over the place and he's chucking the ball around. But when you look at the number of penalties that they get for holding or ineligible receivers downfield and all that other stuff, that is a direct result of him being so athletic that nobody can tackle him. But I don't have eyes in the back of my head as an offensive lineman, so I don't know where my quarterback is. So I have to do the best that I can when he's, ad-libbing back there. And I think that, discretion sometimes is the better part of valor. Throw the ball away, run to the sidelines and get out of bounds, which is a hell of a lot better than some of these, ridiculous circus catches that he's thrown up and his guys are catching it. But speaking of circus catches, we'll talk about crazy wild animals, and we have a sponsor here at As for Football. It is BuyerBarn.com. And Buyer Barn was created by a class of 1997 graduate by the name of Dan Robinson. Dan ran a traditional farm co-op and auction and realized that there was a better way to modernize farm sales in the 21st century. Dan and his co-founder Dinu took their IT experience in management and development and created the world's first farm-to-farm online sales auction platform. Buyer Barn reduces animal health issues by cutting down on animal and owner contact, prevents animal fraud through a buyer-seller rating system. It's a fully integrated auction platform with secure payments, convenience to buy and sell on your own time, and you get better market pricing because of the wider audience. If you have any questions, go to buyerbarn.com or click on info or email them at info@buyerbarn.com. There's also a tab on the Ask for Football website that you can jump on and get all the information that you need to know. Let's talk about the service academies this week. Dano, what you got?
Well, as we mentioned, Army beat Air Force 23-3, took their O away, also knocked them out of the college football New Year's Six bowl talk and every other damn thing. This is the best defensive performance by Army all year. I will say it's also probably the best defensive performance by their defensive line in particular in maybe 18 months since probably the 2021 season. Bryson Daly looked great on offense, ran the ball something like 36 times. Leo Lowen, looked like that Captain America linebacker that Army's been looking for him to be. He got the college football final helmet sticker, well-deserved, 12 tackles, 9 solo, 2 forced fumbles. Like, he was just all over the place. Meanwhile, Navy dropped yet another game to Temple, 32-18. Xavier Arline was 6 of 14 passing for 124 yards and a touchdown. In the other game, that might have been enough. I don't know. Rob, I'm not sure I believe that. But E.J. Warner threw for 402 and 4 touchdowns with 2 interceptions. That Navy rushing defense is really good. Held Temple to just 42 yards rushing, but their defensive backs leave something to be desired. So Trigger Joe asked in the group chat, I think it was Trigger Joe, this weekend, when E.J. Warner would transfer. Joe, man, that's an interesting question.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely got the skills for sure.
Yeah. Well, because, Joe was like, well, we haven't seen him play against better competition, which is exactly why my man might consider transferring. Over on the FCS side, Coast Guard Academy beat WPI 28-21, setting them up as they head into that Secretary's Cup matchup. They can end their regular season 6-4 with a win. Merchant Marine Academy had a bye, so they'll go into the Secretary's Cup Veterans Day matchup. They're 6-2 on the year, and yeah, man, if they get that win, that'd be icing on the top for them too.
Yeah, for sure. All right, Joe, let's move on into this week's top 10. What you got?
Yeah, Georgia stays at number 1. They keep the top spot after holding off Mizzou 31-20 in a pretty good game. At number 2, Michigan stays after they punked Purdue and Ryan Waters 41-13, and that score did not illustrate how dominating the Wolverines were once again. Number 3, we got Ohio State backdoor covered in Piscataway, New Jersey, 35-16 over Rutgers. Number 4, FSU stumbled out of the start gate but found their stride at Pitt, winning 24-7. Number 5 is Washington, who I think should be at number 4 after hanging half a hundo proving Caleb Williams is overrated again and getting the DC canned in a huge 52-42 win at USC. Number 6, Oregon thunder stomped Cal 63-19. Number 7 is Texas. I said the Horns weren't done last week, and they proved it. Another instant classic war against K-State, hanging on in overtime, 33-30. Number 8 is Alabama in the statement game of their season so far, in my opinion, soundly beating LSU 42-28. Number 9 is Penn State. Note they're 11th in the playoff ranking right now, but they stay at 9 here, which won't really matter after this weekend. But they ripped Maryland 51-15. And then at number 10, Ole Miss. The Rebels are back in the top 10 after a hard-fought win over A&M, 38-35. But would it have killed them to kick a field goal and cover the 4.5 for me? 3-1 if they'd held on to a touchdown lead.
Nice.
I would like to point out that Alabama has been my sleeper team all season, which is insane, and yet they're still my sleeper team. At number 8, they could very much still win that national championship.
Well, the scary part of it is like now everybody's starting to take notice of Alabama. Well, they've only had, they've only had one loss, and then after the whooping that they put on LSU, everybody's starting to say, okay, how does this happen for playoff contentions? And we'll run down the college football rankings, and then we'll talk about the top 25 slaughter that happened this weekend. But right now, your college football rankings as of this recording, you got Ohio State is number 1, UGA is number 2, Michigan's number 3, and FSU. I think the 4th place seed could be any one of the teams that are like 5 through 8, to be completely honest. It just depends on who you're watching. Like if you watch Washington, like, hey, Michael Penix Jr. is having a great season, but USC, they're kind of also ran. Oregon, if Oregon hadn't lost to Washington, then you could make the case. Texas, again, if they hadn't lost to OU, you can make the case. But Alabama, like Alabama's road to the playoff is there. If they beat Georgia, and they
like
clean it,
movie. Who's the next guy? And all of a sudden you just see that A, and it's the playoffs, and everyone's like, "Oh crap, they were supposed to have a bad year."
Yeah, how did this happen? I don't know if you guys been watching Milroe, man. Like that kid is good.
Yeah,
he is legit good. Like that guy is fast, he's strong, and like whatever it was, like and you have this argument, and this is something that we could make a whole other topic about too. But like when you really think about it, when a coach makes a decision to sit a starting quarterback, like that does something to his psychology, and it's either he's going to trend up or he's going to trend down. And in this case, the kid is trending up huge.
Yeah, you're going to find out if you got a quarterback.
Yeah, and
he's going to quit or he's going to get better.
Yeah, and dude's showing improving, man. Like he had 3 rushing touchdowns, a passing touchdown in the game. So it's like
very Jalen Hurts-esque.
Yeah, he did all the scoring. But moving on to the top 25 losses, man. So we're at 51 so far in the 2023 season. Of course, the number 1 being Army knocking Air Force out of the top 25 by beating them 23-3 in a great game. Notre Dame lost to an unranked Clemson, which is unbelievable. They still aren't even bowl eligible. Like Dabo and crew needs another win in order to get a bowl game, and who knows if that's going to happen. You've got K-State that lost in overtime to Texas. That was a great game if you didn't see any of it. OU down Oklahoma State, or Oklahoma State beat old Pistol Pete, came out and finished it and killed off OU's chances of playoff hopes. I think they're pretty much done, and it's maybe a while before they're even talked about in the playoff discussion, particularly going next year when they pop into the SEC. UGA took down formerly number 12 Mizzou 31-20. I mean, come on, man. Georgia has to do something. Like they need to beat these teams a lot more impressively. That being said, Mizzou was 7-1 going into that contest.
Yeah, they're not a team that I don't lose for you. You're going to be favored by 14, and then you got to beat Mizzou by 14. They're tough.
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all. Mizzou was the second best team in the SEC East.
Yeah,
they beat them soundly. Like the game was never really in doubt. Come on, man.
Yeah, but it just wonders. It's like, is the specter of Alabama still hanging out there? Because Georgia still has a couple other tough games left on their schedule.
Absolutely,
that could, hopefully not trip them up or anything. But number 5, Washington put another nail in USC's coffin for the season with the 52-42 win. That was gross. That was gross. I mean, I watched that game. It was ridiculous. It was a comedy show. Like. Yep. People just throwing footballs all over the place, guys making fabulous catches, but there was no reason for them to make a fabulous catch like that. And you're scoring, the last week it was 99 points. This week it was 94 points. Okay, like look, if you are a USC fan, and I'm sorry to anybody that is, but you've really got to be thinking about that decision to hire Lincoln Riley at this point, because like he's bringing the offense, which would be great. He'd probably make an awesome offensive coordinator in any college football or maybe even NFL team. But when you look at his overall performance as a coach, they dumped a whole lot of money and invested in that guy, to bring the package deal of Caleb Williams over. Like, I won the Heisman last year, but they still had 2 losses. Like,
I don't understand how it's hard to win out there. I mean, you're telling me kids don't want to go to school at USC?
Yeah, have Will Ferrell hanging out on the sidelines.
Getting the recruits that can finish these games. I just don't really understand it. I think USC is poorly coached. I really do.
Yeah. Well,
not a new issue for him. I mean, we saw this when he was at Oklahoma too. I feel like you sort of knew what you had to expect there.
Yeah, he didn't believe in the defense, and he still doesn't apparently.
Well, he bought a Big 12 offense into the Pac-12. That's all he did. He certainly did. He certainly bought a Big 12 defense as well, because they play 0 defense in that league. Like, that's the worst, division in college football as far as defense is concerned. But speaking of people that need some work and he'll probably do some improvement, it's time to move into Joe's Blue Falcon of the Week. So who's in the circle of infamy this week?
This one's going to feel personal. I'm going to sound like a homer, and I'm going to sound triggered, but I can't help myself. Head coach of Purdue, Ryan, tell the teacher Waters, take a seat in the blue chair, know your role, and shut your mouth. Ryan said, I called a spade when he was asked about his role as the snitch in this witch hunt, smoke show, charade, signal stealing nonsense that Michigan is being accused of. Well, in the words of one of my favorite actors of all time, allow me to retort. If we're doing a lot of spade identifying, let me identify this. This is your first year at Purdue after Jeff Brom left for Louisville. Purdue had an 8-6 overall record, and we're 6-3 in the conference a year ago, winning the very weak, I know, Big Ten West and playing the Wolverines in the Big Ten title game. I think we can all agree that's a very good season at Purdue. Enter the Waters era. In less than a year, Purdue has a 2-7 overall record, and they're 1-6 in the conference. You've come out publicly accusing Michigan of cheating, and anyone who knows anything about sports knows that's a beta male weak move. If Michigan was 6-6, you'd be sitting back laughing, saying nothing. But since your boys can't compete, and that was proven on Saturday to the tune of 41-13, caveat, everyone steals signs. It's part of the game. It's the reason there's 3 dummy signal callers who are just there to fool the defense that's looking right at them. It's the reason coaches put a laminated sheet of paper over their mouth when they talk. And I believe it's the reason a lot of coaches wore the COVID mask longer than they needed to, because it was more convenient when they were at the sidelines and everyone is looking at you to see if they can get a leg up. That's football. And when all the smoke settles and Jim Harbaugh's still coaching Michigan and signs a new contract extension later on this month, I hope he sues you for defamation, because what's happening to him right now is ridiculous. And if nobody has the guts to stand up for Harbaugh, I will. He has no record of cheating. Okay. And Michigan is an institution that prides itself on integrity, and they would not be signing the head football coach to a contract extension if they believed he was dirty. Football's not the only show in town at the University of Michigan, believe it or not. End of story. Ryan Waters, you're in my vertical and horizontal intersection because you're the kid at recess that starts the fight and then tells the teacher after getting his butt kicked. You're the snitch and you're the attention thief. Nobody cares about what Purdue's doing this year on the field because they have one conference win in week 11. So to nab some attention, somebody shove a mic in my face because I don't have the ability to get attention the right way. There's rules being broken by a team that keeps handing you your ass on a platter. Only a coward would make an excuse for that. Michigan has won the last 2 games against Purdue by a combined score of 84-35, and there's no way to steal that. Until you can take a loss like a man and admit that you've got a lot of work to do before you're even in the same stratosphere as Jim Harbaugh and the Michigan Wolverines, take your seat next to Mel, Ryan Waters. You're the Blue Falcon of the week. I apologize for being a homer, guys.
The one thing I will say is that this would be very easy to fix with those helmet communicator thingamabobbers that they've had in the NFL forever. Like, it's not even complicated.
No, you know what the discussion is from the NC2A. The discussion from the NC2A is, well, the schools that don't have money can't do it. And so rather than, like, I don't know, you guys make $1 billion.
How expensive is that? Come on.
Yeah. But at the bottom line, they make $1 billion a year. That the NC2A could probably help it out. at some point. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for Joe and his Blue Falcon of the week, or should we call it Joe's Triggered Minute? But moving on to the topic this week, which team is Blade running right now that you want to see, that you would like to see get a bowl? And I'll lean in. Of course, I'd love to see the Buffaloes get in, but they got tough sledding. They got 3 games left, and I just don't see it happening. They're trending, they have a trending upward. Arizona to play this week. They've got Washington State, who's basically having a similar season as them, and then they cap the end of the year with Utah. They need to win 2 of their last 3 in order to get a bowl. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. The only other teams that I really want to see get a shot at the postseason probably will not happen is James Madison University and Jacksonville State. Both of those teams are great. They both have bowl eligible records, but because they moved up from FCS last year to FBS this year, JMU's in their second year, and I think the ban is 2 years or 3 years or something like that, or there's some ridiculous payout that they have to have in order to go to the postseason, which I just think is kind of junk.
Yep.
And then, both of those teams have enough to win. I want to call shame on the NC2, shame on the NC2A, man. Like
especially the Dukes, man. James Madison's for real this year.
Absolutely.
What's the point in keeping a good competitive team out of a bowl game? Right? Like
they don't have a big fan base that the NCAA can't make a bunch of money off of, maybe.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's a guess.
There's only one way to fix that, and that's by putting them on TV.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. Give them their best opportunity to grow the fan base. And again, it sucks. Shame on you, NCAA. Shame. But selfishly, I'd like to see Army run this table and have the NCAA give them an exception and say, hey, look, you guys are 6-6 for your 2 FCS games. Didn't happen last year when you had a Power 5 team pull out and you had 2 FCS games. So I don't see it happening with a team that has struggled all season, even if they do run the table for the rest of it. And the other part of it is, see previous note, if it came down to a 6-6 Army team or undefeated JMU team to go into a bowl game, I would much rather see JMU go because they deserve it, quite frankly. Even if Army busts their butt and wins out, that would be awesome for the team and for momentum going into the next season. But if you have a team that legitimately can win their conference, not go, that would be like Liberty winning, Conference USA and not getting a decent bowl game.
Yeah,
so
that's crazy too.
How about you?
Yeah, I've got 2. We talked about Temple. They're 3-6 right now. They just got EJ Warner back from injury. We saw what he did, threw for 400 plus this week with that win over Navy. They have South Florida, Alabama, Birmingham, and then Memphis. And obviously they need to win all 3 of those. They got an excellent shot against those first 2. But so if they're 5-6 headed into that showdown at Memphis, that's a pretty interesting, like low-key American Conference game. Then in the ACC, Virginia Tech is 4-5, and like it's taken a while, but their power running game started coming together recently with former Army offensive coordinator Brent Davis. Not so much this week; they got smoked by Louisville, but the week before they ran for something like 350 yards. I mean, it was nuts. And if you watch the highlights, it looked like Army's offense. Like it was just a straight up power running offense. It was badass. So anyway. Tech has Boston College, NC State, and Virginia, and they need 2 of those 3. It's actually a hard slate because Boston College also runs the crap out of the football. If they drop that BC game this weekend, they're probably screwed.
That's fair. How about you, Joe?
Since you guys always cover the Pac-12, the SEC, the East Coast, and the service academies, and there are literally dozens of teams on the cusp of being eligible, I figured I'll talk about the teams in the Big Ten that could go bowling. Maryland, Nebraska, Minnesota, and Wisconsin are all 5-4 right now and should be able to get that final win to make it in. The long shots, believe it or not, Northwestern has a record of 4-5. And after a mild upset, the Fighting Illini have the same record. I personally would really like to see it for the kids at Northwestern to be able to play in a bowl. I mean, what happened to them before the season wasn't quite fair to all of them. And it could have derailed the whole thing, but somehow they've managed to be almost 500 in a tough conference that I will admit isn't as deep as it has been in years past. But that's something Northwestern should be proud of. And if they can manage to finish 6-6 or like in spectacular fashion and finish 7-5, they'll definitely be bowling. So a lot of teams in the Big Ten, and it'll be interesting to see the way that sorts itself out. But I'm pulling for Northwestern. Those kids go to class. They have academic standards. And, it'd be nice to see them recover. You lose your head coach, it's almost like losing a parent. So
yeah,
it'd be nice to see them pull it out.
That's a good one.
Yeah, I have nothing against that, and I think honestly, when you really look at college football, I think bowl season is kind of the reward for hard work. So regardless of what team you're on, if you're 6-6, yeah, I think everybody grumbles underneath their breath when you see a 6-6 team going into a bowl game. However, usually when you have a 6-6 team going into a bowl game, you don't see a lot of the starters sitting. And so those guys are given that opportunity. They're going to play their hearts out to try and get that, that last win and bust that 500 before the end of the year. And so that really is helpful, honestly. And so I understand why the bowl committee lets 6-6 teams go in. The other piece of it is ESPN basically said it, hey, we'll continue to add bowl games if there's enough teams to play in them. So
yeah,
my thought is this, since you guys are going to continue to, add bowl games for teams that are 6-6, hey, set me up a bowl game, put it in freaking, do it in Charlotte, man. I'll go to the Duke's Mayo Bowl too with JMU and Jacksonville State playing each other. I mean, I think that would be a great game. Like if you're going to add bowl games because there's enough eligible teams, add one for those guys just to give them the TV time. Is it going to hurt anything
this weekend?
Yeah.
I mean, in South Carolina, they tell me that team isn't entertaining.
Yeah. I mean, that would be low hanging fruit. And like NCAA, if you're listening to this, like you should make it happen. And the reason why I say that is because
and make it happen.
Yeah, because it's all about fans, right? It's all about the fans, and that's what bowl games really are about. Because like there is no actual benefit to the university except financially and getting eyeballs on them to go into the postseason. So if you're going to do it, make the investment in the teams that actually need to go. And like I said, when I'm hoping that when JMU and Jacksonville State get this postseason ban lifted, that they are still, competing the way that they are. So they have the best opportunity to go postseason because they're legit teams, both of them. And I've watched their games, they're solid performances. And the bottom line is it is a crime against humanity to not have all teams that are eligible to go to bowls, go to bowls. And speaking of not having crimes against humanity, if you need to get a new home, we have a sponsor, and his name is Craig Oxane, who finally followed me on Twitter, which is after almost 3 years on Ask for Football. This is the first time I've got him on Twitter. But
well, if it makes you feel any better, he just re-upped his sponsorship. I cashed his check today, so
nice.
You can feel good about that.
Yeah, thanks,
Craig Oxane is the vice president of residential lending for Draper and Kramer in Chicago. He is a West Point graduate, class of 1994, licensed to lend in all 50 states, but one of the biggest VA lenders in the country. Friends, Craig is going to give you the best deal that he possibly can. And that's good because the mortgage process is freaking confusing. You got interest rates moving all over the place, all these rules. You got to sign 2 inches worth of paperwork when you get your house. Like, it's scary, and you want to deal with somebody who cares about you, not somebody who just wants to make a buck off you or for whom you're just a number. Not some call center, not some random big box bank, not a mindless website. This is how the West Point Network functions. Craig is helping us stay in business here at Ask for Football, and we're helping you get the best deal on a mortgage that we possibly can by introducing you to the man that you need to meet. Plus, Craig doesn't charge lenders fees for veterans. That's a huge savings, like $1,300. Get that money, guys. Like that's easy. Craig Oxane, Vice President of Residential Lending. Check him out. Links on our website. Just go to askforfootball.com. Click the little button, fill out a questionnaire. You'll be talking to Craig in a couple of hours.
Thanks, Dan. So let's move on to the games of the week. Hey, cannot complain. Again, I think one of the things, if this is a staple for college football later on in the season, that we're going to have Tuesday night games, I'm all down for that because there are usually some halfway decent teams and some decent matchups. So you have on Tuesday at 7 o'clock on CBS Sports Network, and then on ESPNU, you've got Ball State at NIU playing, and then you got Central and Western Michigan kicking off at 7 on ESPNU. You've got Ohio and Buffalo playing at 7:30 on ESPN2. Wednesday, MACtion. So Wednesday is actually most of the MAC games, and so you've got MACtion running on. So you've got Akron at Miami of Ohio, 7:30 kick at on ESPNU. You got Bowling Green and Kent State. We have Eastern Michigan and Toledo, and those are all 3 games on Wednesday. Thursday, you've got Virginia and Louisville. That's a good game. Like, Louisville is a solid team. They've bounced back after that loss to Pitt, and Virginia has been trending upward. You know, they've stumbled a little bit, but they're still actually looking like a pretty solid team, and that should be a great matchup on Thursday night. You got Southern Miss and the University of Louisiana on the second game on Thursday night. Friday night, you've got North Texas and SMU, Wyoming and UNLV. Those will be mildly interesting, plus their late kicks. So you've got a 2100 kick for ESPN2 for North Texas and SMU, and then Wyoming and UNLV kicks at 10:45 p.m. on Fox Sports 1. So just catch those highlights in the morning. I mean, that'd be my recommendation.
Wyoming catching like 5 points in that game, which is amazing.
Yeah, that's nuts. Yeah, I think that'll be interesting. You got Alabama and Kentucky. I mean, Kentucky has had a good season up until this point. They struggled in a couple of games, but after the way that Bama put it on LSU, I think it's going to be an interesting contest, maybe for the first half, and then Bama will Bama in the second half, as they always do, and they'll probably end by beating by 2 or 3 touchdowns. Moving down the slate, we've got Auburn and Arkansas. Those are kind of 2 middle-tier teams in the SEC playing each other. That could potentially end up being a good game just because, like, they're in the middle. You got Florida at LSU. Now, if they were in Jacksonville, I think edge Florida because LSU is kind of struggling. I don't foresee LSU losing another game, though, just to be completely honest. I don't think that's going to happen. Moving on, you got Holy Cross at Army kicking at noon. You've got Michigan State and Penn State at Penn State. That's noon. That's going to be a whiteout game in the daytime, which kind of sucks because, like, the whiteout.
Michigan State. And my feelings are hurt.
I'm sorry. Well,
you didn't mean that, did you?
It all kind of runs together. Michigan, Penn State at Penn State. That's a whiteout game on Fox at noon. You've got Michigan State at Ohio State, 7:30 on NBC and Peacock. Dude, like, I feel bad for Michigan State.
Yep, for both teams to lose.
Yeah. That's a game that that's a game that really has a lot of significance for one team, and Michigan State has pulled it off before at their place, the upset of the Buckeyes, but given the way the Buckeyes defense is playing this year, their offense is, it's not
roughed up.
Yeah, it's their offense isn't performing as advertised. So, like, if you look at Ohio State's offense, like the last 3 years under Ryan Day, they've averaged like 42.5 points a game. And now they're averaging about 38 points a game, but the defense is a hell of a lot better. So, I mean, you don't need to score 42 if you've got a defense the way that they're playing. You got Northwestern at Wisconsin. That's going to be an interesting game because both of those teams are kind of struggling. Wisconsin is good. Their star running back, their 17-star tailback got hurt when they played Ohio State, and he's still kind of on the mend. So it's always an opportunity that, like, Northwestern may be able to, get into a dogfight. I don't know if they'll win, but that should be a good game. You got ODU at Liberty. Old Dominion was good a couple of years ago. They're still decent. Liberty is still undefeated. They're playing pretty tough this year. Probably going to win Conference USA. I mean, they're in the driver's seat for sure, and we'll see what happens. You got Old Miss.
The problem is they ain't played anybody. I mean, they beat the crap out of their schedule, but they haven't had a game to prove what they can do.
Yeah, it's been pretty soft.
Well, and that's the thing, and that'll be a comment that I will make. Well, a comment that we can make at just about any time. I think part of the reason why Army's win over Air Force was so shocking was because Air Force was undefeated. But when you looked at their strength of schedule, they're bottom of the barrel. And so I think that's one of the things that, like, going forward in the rest of the season, particularly through November, teams that have had a soft schedule, like, they are going to have to step up to prove, particularly those in the playoff contention, that they're ready to go for the playoff, because any of those top 10, 12 teams, they can start shifting around, and Novembers are the games that people really care about, because that's usually when your rivalry games are, and you're getting close to, if not into, your conference championship games. So you're going to know what the slate looks like by the end of the month. You got Ole Miss at Georgia. Hey, man, I like Lane Kiffin and the offense over there at Ole Miss. I don't think that they're going to have enough for Georgia or anything for Georgia. This game will be a great one coming up next, though. Tennessee and Missouri, I think that's going to be an awesome football contest to watch.
Pick them right now.
Yeah. I'm a little scared Tennessee's not going to come through in the clutch there. It's frustrating because they're just not as good as you want them to be.
Yeah, but Joe Milton's been playing a lot better in the latter half of the season.
He really surprised me.
Yeah,
his pick to touchdown ratio it's light years from where he was at Michigan. Like, I didn't know he had it in him, but he's playing very well.
Yeah, I think that game's very, very dangerous. I mean, it'll be a great contest to watch either way. UConn's Cinderella season is over. They go down to JMU, and they're probably going to get smacked around for sure. That'll be on the plus. You've got Arizona and Colorado. That's an interesting game because, like, you're starting to see the improvements in the Colorado defense, and Arizona is trending upwards. So I think this is like a good clash of two, like, middle of the herd Pac-12 teams. Yep. I think it'll be a good one. That one will be worth watching for sure if you have the Pac-12 network. You got Arizona State against UCLA. That should be a good game. UCLA, came out pretty strong against USC, and then they kind of got rolled over, but I think that will be a better game than advertised. You got Stanford against Oregon State. That one will be good just because, Stanford rises to the occasion. Oregon State can lose, and their record is not the best. The marquee matchup in the Pac-12, and again, like, you got Pac-12 fratricide all this week, which is going to be crazy. You got some really good games in the Pac-12. You got USC at Oregon. Again, that game's going to be televised TBD, though they haven't said when or what channel. But, this could be the nail in the coffin. Like, if Oregon blows USC out, then what you're going to end up seeing is I think you see USC either at 25 or fall out of the top 25 completely. I mean, at this point, you're 6-4. You're going to a bowl, but who cares? Like, their chance for the Rose Bowl. Their chance for the Rose Bowl is Oregon and Washington making it into the playoff somehow. Because other than that, USC season is pretty much done. And that's what started all the speculation last week of is Caleb Williams going to stay? Is he going to leave? I mean, at some point you got to make somebody tweeted it out, and that's what started the whole rumor. It's like, hey, look, you've got to make the right business decision. And for him, like, what's the point? What does he do? You know what I mean? And, like, at the end of the day, it's like, he can be super athletic. He can do all those things. But what I will say is he is not going to have that same level of performance in the pros as Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Lamar Jackson.
Mike Williams, when Mike Williams did that?
Yeah.
Said, I'm not going to play. I want to be drafted. And the NFL said, hey, we don't do that. And he said, okay, I just won't play. Well, the Lions were stupid enough to draft him, but you didn't hear about him 2 years later.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Is just like you're going to have players like he is probably, that kid is probably in the worst position in college football right now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, former Heisman Trophy winner on probably the worst team at least in your league, if not in college football. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like, dude, keep in mind, Colorado played those guys close.
Yeah. If he doesn't have somebody around him telling him you need to play more college football to become a better pro, then he's got bad people around him.
Yeah.
Someone's giving this kid bad advice, in my opinion.
No, the bottom line is, the best thing that he could do is, and I hate to say it, and he probably can't because he's already transfer to another team. He'll have to sit out a year, which will suck for him. But what's another year of maturity? When you're already making Dr. Pepper money, man. Like,
Bo Nix will be 31 in December.
True statement. And who else might be coming back? Cam Rising, because we haven't seen him all season.
I think did he take a medical red shirt?
I think he has. I haven't dove into it, but he hasn't played in 6 games, so it's quite possible that we will see him again as the lone gunslinger. Moving on, you got Duke in North Carolina, so you got the Battle of the Blues. That's always exciting around this part, and given the way that Duke has been playing and North Carolina, I think that'll be a good matchup between the two of them. You got Georgia Tech and Clemson, mildly interesting. You got Miami and Florida State. Again, like this is a 1990s matchup that everybody used to watch. That's now like dead and buried. Like, what a shame.
Yeah, for sure.
What
and then watch Miami turn around and win that game.
Yeah, he would not be surprised.
They wouldn't be the craziest thing that's ever happened. That's for sure.
Yeah, you know what else will happen if it's close towards, if it's towards the tail end of the game? I bet you Mario Cristobal will take a knee for sure. But you got Baylor and Kansas State. That's always a great game. Baylor at K-State, I actually got to see when I was unfortunately stationed at Fort Riley. I actually got to see RG3 play Baylor at Kansas State. His only interception his first interception of the season was against Kansas State at their place, and it was a tip pass. And believe it or not, man, what a waste of a super, super talented athlete for him to get hurt like he did when he was in the pros, because that guy was an amazing athlete. I mean,
Baylor was so exciting when he played there.
Yeah, like straight up, like one of the absolute best. You got Oklahoma State at UCF. Now, that could be a trap game for Oklahoma State, man, because, old UCF is tricky. Old Gus Malzahn, like when they booted him from Auburn, that was not a good idea to let him go down to Central Florida, because he will put it on you. So we'll see what happens in that one. Texas at TCU. That could be a trap game too. You had an emotional freaking overtime win against Kansas State, and TCU is just slowly muddling along their middle of the pack. They're 5-4. Like, don't get caught looking to the next week, because that could be bad for you. You got Texas Tech and Kansas, West Virginia at Oklahoma. That should be an interesting game. That's an old Big 12 matchup kind of revisited. And then the last two on the slate that I would call your attention to, you got UAB at Navy. Nobody cares unless Navy can fix their offense, because their offense is bad. Like, their defense is good, but their offense is bad.
Their run defense is good.
Yeah. Well, if you got a quarterback that could throw 200 yards and 2 touchdowns or 3 touchdowns, you'll probably win that game, because UAB
absolutely.
And they got the coach to do it down there at UAB. So who knows? You got Georgia State and App State, man. Again, if you got ESPN Plus, definitely check that one out. I think that'll be a great game. And then the last one on the slate is tracking is Texas State and Coastal Carolina, and that's at 3:30 on ESPN. I'll be watching that.
Great game.
Yeah, I'm gonna be watching that one just to scout out to see what Coastal does, because they seem to be, and I don't even want to say it out loud, but they seem to be playing better with their backup quarterback since Grayson McCall's been out, and I think it's just because that guy's gotten enough reps, and now that he's getting starter reps, he's only going to get better.
Texas State sneaky good too.
Yeah, I think that'll be a good game.
Yeah.
Weekly locks.
What you got?
So I went 3-0 last week, finally. South Alabama at Troy went way under 46.5. As we predicted, BC won outright at Syracuse, and Coastal Carolina easily covered 1.5 at Old Dominion. This week, I got to say, outside of Michigan at Penn State and Tennessee at Mizzou, there aren't that many Power 5 games that really speak to me personally. I am taking Virginia Tech at Boston College under 49.5. Like, both those teams are going to run the crap out of the football, and they can barely do anything else. So if nothing else, that game is going to be short. Temple plus 7.5 at South Florida. We already talked about that. Temple's got a really decent chance to win that game outright. And if anything, game's going to be decided on the last play. And finally, Troy at ULM under 45.5. Bottom line, ULM isn't going to score at all on Troy. So I don't think Troy puts up 45.
That's fair.
Tempted to take Tennessee at Mizzou under or over 58.5, but that's just a temptation.
That's a lean. Okay. Joe, how about you?
All right. I had a rough week. I went 2-2. Notre Dame never got off the bus in Death Valley. Ole Miss blew a huge lead only to win by 3 and not cover 4.5. Oklahoma State made me look smart by winning outright in Bedlam when I had them +6 across the board all week. And the Fighting Primes of Colorado covered against Oregon State, losing by 7 when they were +14 at kickoff. All right. So to make it up, I'm picking one more game this week. I'm picking 5. First, I'm going with the boys behind me, the Michigan Wolverines, -3.5 at Penn State. I watched Penn State when they played the second best defense in the Big Ten, and they didn't look very good. I've got Michigan winning this game by 2 touchdowns, and they are a lock for me going away. I've watched every game in the Big Ten this season that mattered. Talent is talent. Michigan matches up really good with these guys. Next, I got Kansas at home, -3.5 against Texas Tech. Kansas is playing their best football of the season, and I think they win a shootout here, and I really like the over in that game as well because Texas Tech can score. Then you guys have mentioned a few of the games. You just mentioned them for other reasons, but then I'm taking Boston College -1 at home against Virginia Tech, who looked putrid last week against Louisville, losing by 30+, and they never really found their offense. And then I'm sticking with the boys from Stillwater to go on the road and beat UCF. I'm locking in OK State -2. They haven't lost a game since September 23rd, and UCF is 1-4 in their last 5. The Cowboys have the best RB1 in the nation, and Ollie Gordon, and I believe they roll with him. They've turned their season around, and after back-to-back L's to South Alabama and Iowa State, they're probably the most dangerous team in the country right now that nobody wants to play. And for my bonus pick, I feel it's necessary to roll with the Louisville Cardinals, who look like their defense is firing on all cylinders, and their offense has been able to hang up 30+ all season, giving 20.5 at home against the lowly Cavaliers of Virginia. After a 30+ point win over Virginia Tech, I feel like Louisville is going to blow out Virginia and possibly pitch another shutout, if not a under 1 touchdown game on defense. I like Louisville 28-0.
Oh, nice.
I think they're on fire right now. I really do.
Yeah, I think they bounced back pretty well after the loss to Pitt. And again, like who says that? Because nobody's lost to Pitt this season,
right? Especially the team that's beat the teams that Louisville's beat. Handily,
yeah,
for sure. Like that just doesn't even seem right.
Pitt's sneaky, man. Pitt's one of those teams that you don't want to go play there just because, once again, you're supposed to win that game, and if you don't come with your A game, they can play defense.
Yeah, they'll sneak up on you. So I went 4-0 last week. Hit on the over between USC and Washington, and Penn State and Maryland, which you guys poo-pooed me on. I knew that was going to happen. Pitt covered 21 barely, and then OSU won outright at Bedlam, which is pretty awesome. So those were my picks last week. Again, I'm taking the blind over USC at Oregon. Nobody cares. I mean, like both those teams have tremendous offense. See at least, I'm going to say 80 points, probably closer to 90 again, just because that's been the trend the last 3 weeks for USC. They can score 40, 45 points, but they can't stop 52 or 55 points. I mean, like it's going to be out of control.
I think over 100.
Yeah, it might, particularly with the pace of Oregon's offense. And again, you're going to have a great quarterback duel. So you have Heisman Trophy winner versus Heisman Trophy candidate, and Bo Nix will get out of his walker, get out on the sidelines, throw some touchdown passes, and then head back in to eat his pudding from a spoon or from a straw. Because that guy is like the oldest dude in college football. Holy moly. All right. Take Florida to cover 13.5 at LSU. If we're playing,
wow.
If they were playing in the swamp, I would take the Gators to win. But I think this game is going to go into overtime, and LSU will win by at least 6 points.
Is Jaden Daniels even playing? He got knocked out of that Bama game.
I don't know. Like he got his bell rung, and I haven't heard anything about concussion protocol on him, but he got rocked. Particularly
if he got diagnosed, he can't play.
Yeah, well, I don't think he did because it was late in the game. They didn't put him back in, but he got blasted. Like it was like one of those. It was one of those like oof, like that was a bad hit from the defensive player. Like he ran through him, and it literally was like helmet in the center of his chest. So it wasn't like a targeting call or anything like that. It just was an unnecessary roughness, or roughing the passer. But
it would have been unnecessary roughness in the NFL because he took him all the way to the ground after he threw the ball. But not so much in college.
Yeah, it was for sure roughing the passer though, for real. And at some point, deep down inside, the defensive guy in me was like, I'll take a penalty like that if you rock the kid's world, but not injure him. You know what I mean? Like if it's a good sharp, if it's a good hard hit, you get a penalty on it, and the guy has footsteps. I'm okay with that. But if it takes them out of the game, then
Sure.
again, it is what it is. And then take the over 44.5 Wolverines against the Nittany Lions at the whiteout game. I'm saying 41-32. I think Penn State will have a little bit more offense for Michigan. Plus, Michigan will score fast, and so I think that will allow Penn State to keep it a little bit closer than what Joe's thinking. But
I got Michigan 38-21.
Yeah, but I legitimately think they'll score some points. I mean, they're going to hit the over for sure. But and I'm gonna stop because I picked 4 last week and I hit on all 4. I'm gonna get out while the getting's good, and
Nice.
And not go too far, go too crazy. But like the only other lean that I would have is I would take the again looking at the Washington and not Washington, but the USC and Oregon game. Like if there's some kind of crazy parlay with like passing yards, like I would look at like quarterbacks and passing touchdowns, because I think you're going to have another quarterback duel. You're probably going to see both QBs with 300 plus. So if you have like a parlay for like 250 and 3 touchdowns, I would take that on both quarterbacks. You'll probably hit both of those legs because those guys they're going to put up the numbers. Like that's a fact. There's no denying that one. But
I'm gonna search for points bet. See if they got 100 points bonus bet. I think there's going to be over 100 points scored.
You think so? Yeah. I mean, at the rate that they're
Oregon's
going,
hung 80 once this year themselves. They've scored 60 twice on conference opponents.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
nuts.
when you're looking at it, like it's going to be a track meet, man. Like if you like offense, like buckle up because you don't blink because you're going to get up to go to the bathroom and there are going to be 2 touchdowns scored because these guys are going to be slinging it all over the place. But moving on to the bandwagon fantasy sports update. Like, look, the rest of you guys, we love you, but y'all got some work to do in order to catch up with me, Dan and Matt, because Matt, again, is in number 1. I held the number 1 spot for like 30 seconds, and then the game ended, and then I got bumped back down. I actually have the away wins. I have more away wins than him, so I just need Matt to make one bad choice, and then hopefully we'll either be tied or I'll win the tiebreaker.
He deserves so much credit for leaving Army in his lineup heading into that road Air Force win. And then when they got the win, don't get me wrong, I'm delighted, but I was screwed. Like, he's 6 points up on me now. I don't think I can catch him.
Did you keep Army in your lineup?
I never had Army in my lineup. I hate to say it, but no.
Yeah, I had Army in my lineup as well, so I got the benefit of that one. But I gotta move a couple things around. But hey, man, like we're at the end of the show. College football is insane. We got 51 top 25 losses, and those are still going to be coming. A lot of those losses are going to happen this week in the Pac-12. So if you are a Pac-12 fan, get your Pac-12 network going on. But bottom line is, man, like this has been an interesting season. There are teams that are trending up and trending out. This week should be the week for those teams that have 2 or 3 losses or 3 or more losses. They should be closing in on bowl eligibility. So hopefully we'll start chipping away at some of those guys that Joe had mentioned in the Big Ten, and the folks that Dano mentioned, at least we're getting one step closer to having that postseason opportunity. Again, bowl games are fun when, like I said, if it's a 6-6 team or the guys are trying to, put a stamp on their season because it didn't go as well as they wanted to. I think those are usually more fun games. And if you don't think so, go back to was it 2021 when Army played Mizzou, right? That was a great game. And had their starting running back stayed in, it may have been a different contest. But, Mizzou was like, oh, we're too good. We're too fancy to put our starters in, and it cost them. Nobody wants to see, like, nobody except Army fans wants to see a SEC team lose to an independent, but I'm down for that every time. And I would.
Oh, everybody wanted to see that. Come on, man. How many fans does Mizzou have in this world?
You don't want to see Army beat Mizzou. There's a good chance you support ISIS. I'm not making any accusations.
I mean, Mizzou is not, Missouri is not like the most populous state in the nation. I mean, no, Mizzou can take an L to Army. That was popular across the nation.
Yeah, I think that was a great game. And the bottom line, it was a great game, right? And I think that's really what it is you want to see that postseason play be incredible. Anyway, so for the crew here at the As for Football College Football Roundtable, I'm Rob, the Angry Colonel, calling out of Fayetteville, North Carolina. We got Dano Ikebesa calling to you from coastal Connecticut, and Trigger Joe from the home of the Big House. And we'll see you guys next week.
Beat Holy Cross.
Beat them. Thanks for listening to the Ask for Football College Football Roundtable. Tune in next week as the AFF team brings you more hot takes and college football analysis. We'd like to thank our sponsor, BuyerBarn.com. BuyerBarn.com is the world's first platform to perform online auctions and sales for farm animals. BuyerBarn.com is dedicated to helping small farmers in America and are extending a special discount to military veterans who want to help in the revolution of the family farm. Go to BuyerBarn.com/military. That's BuyerBarn.com, BYREBARN.com to learn more and to get started, or email them at info@BuyerBarn.com. Thanks again for listening to Ask for Football College Football Roundtable, and as always, beat Navy.